It's 10:47 p.m. on a Sunday. You're lying in bed, phone face up on your chest, and you're doing that thing again, the math. Not the real math, the hopeful math. The one where you imagine what life looks like if you just keep doing what you're doing, saving what you can, staying in your lane, and somehow, eventually, it works out. You've got a decent job, you're not broke, you're responsible. And yet there's this quiet, persistent dread that you can't quite name. Not fear, exactly. More like the slow realization that the plan you were sold, work hard, save 10%, retire at 65, is running on a timeline that makes you feel physically tired when you actually do the numbers. Your neighbor Marcus bought a beat-up duplex 3 years ago. You remember thinking it was kind of a weird move. Too much hassle, too much risk. Tenants, maintenance calls, the whole thing. You're both 34. Same neighborhood, similar salaries. He's a project manager, you're in operations. But last week he mentioned, almost casually, that his 2 rental properties now cover his car payment, his groceries, and his daughter's swim lessons every month. Here's the thing, Marcus isn't smarter than you. He's not making more money. He just made 4 specific decisions in a specific order, and the gap between his financial life and yours didn't open when he bought those properties. It opened 3 years ago, in one quiet, boring afternoon when he sat down and ran the actual numbers. This video is about those decisions. Not the theory, not the inspiration, the actual sequence. If you've ever stared at your savings account and wondered whether there's a version of your life that doesn't require waiting until you're 65 to breathe again, subscribe and stick around, because that question is exactly what this video answers. My name is Elena, and I spend way too much time thinking about why 2 people with identical incomes can end up in completely different financial realities. Before we get into it, not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This is a breakdown of a strategy, and your specific situation requires specific professional guidance. The reason most people never acquire a single rental property isn't what they think it is. It's not a money problem. It's not even a knowledge problem. It's a sequencing problem. Here's what nobody tells you. The biggest barrier to your first rental isn't the down payment, it's that nobody teaches you to think in cash flow instead of net worth. You've been trained your entire adult life to think about wealth as a number, your savings balance, your 401k, your net worth on a spreadsheet. That's not wrong, but it's incomplete. The people who reach 4 rentals before 40 aren't just accumulating assets, they're building income streams. Each property is a machine, and once you understand that one machine can fund the down payment for the next, the math stops feeling impossible and starts feeling mechanical. 4 rentals by 40 is not a get-rich-quick idea. It's a compounding strategy that requires patience, specificity, and one thing most financial content refuses to give you: an honest look at the actual traps at each stage. Because there are exactly 4, and almost every person hits one of them without seeing it coming. Let's run the number that usually stops the conversation before it starts. According to the Federal Reserve's 2003 survey of consumer finances, the median American household has approximately $87,000 in retirement savings by age 44. Sit with that. At a 4% withdrawal rate, the standard rule of thumb, that's $3,480 per year, $290 per month. That's the median retirement income scenario for millions of people right now. Not for people who made bad decisions. For the median American household, the people who did everything right, contributed to their 401, didn't blow their money on bad investments, stayed the course. That's not a you problem. That's a structural problem with a system that asks you to stay in a single income lane for 40 years and hope the math works out. Let me say that again. $290 a month. For the median household. Now here's the contrast. 4 modest rental properties, let's say each generating $400 in monthly cash flow after mortgage, taxes, insurance, and a proper vacancy and repair reserve, produces $1,600 per month in passive income. At 40, before your peak earning years are even over, before you've touched a 401k, before Social Security enters the equation. I want to be precise here because precision is the whole point. I'm not talking about high-end properties in expensive markets. I'm talking about B-class single-family homes or small multifamily properties in secondary markets, the kind that trade between $130,000 and $250,000, rent for $1,100 to $1,600 per month, and can be acquired with conventional financing. These are not exotic vehicles. They are the most unsexy, boring, functional financial instruments available to regular people. That's not wealth, that's margin. The ability to make decisions about your time, your career, and your family based on what you actually want, not what your paycheck requires. And the gap between $290 per month and $1,600 per month didn't come from luck. It came from understanding 4 specific stages and the non-obvious trap inside each one. Here's where I need you to stay with me, because the second half of this video is where the math starts doing something genuinely strange. Level 1. The first property. The trap of waiting for perfect. You're 29, or 32, or 35. It doesn't matter exactly. You've been watching the market, reading the forums, calculating cap rates on properties you've never visited. You've got a down payment saved, maybe $18,000, maybe $28,000, and you keep waiting for the right deal. Marcus's counterpart, Derek, has been doing this for 4 years. He can tell you the price-to-rent ratio on 11 different zip codes. He's read 3 books on real estate investing. He has a spreadsheet with 47 properties he's analyzed. He has not bought a single one. The trap at level 1 is almost never the money. The trap is analysis paralysis disguised as due diligence. Here's what that trap does psychologically. It feels responsible. It feels like you're being careful. The problem is that careful and paralyzed feel almost identical. They are not the same thing. The research on this is striking. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Financial Planning found that the single greatest predictor of long-term real estate wealth wasn't market selection, leverage ratio, or property type. It was the time between decision and first acquisition. The investors who moved within 6 months of deciding to buy consistently outperformed those who waited longer. Not because they had better properties, but because they had more time in the market. The exit from level 1 is a single decision. Pick a specific price range, in a specific radius, with a specific cash flow minimum, say $200 per month positive after all expenses, and make an offer on the next property that meets those criteria. Not the perfect property. The next qualifying property. Marcus bought a $187,000 duplex in a B-class neighborhood with 5% down using an FHA owner-occupied loan. He lived in one unit for 14 months. His tenants effectively paid his mortgage. He will tell you it was the least glamorous thing he has ever done. He will also tell you it was the most important. Level 2. The second property. The trap of the equity exhale. This is the trap almost nobody talks about, and it's the one that ends more for rental journeys than any market crash. You've closed on your first property, the tenant is in, the first rent check arrives, and something happens that feels completely reasonable. You exhale, you've done the hard thing, you've taken the risk. You've proven to yourself that it's real, and quietly, without announcing itself, the momentum stops. The trap at level 2 is the exhale. The moment the first property starts working, the urgency that created it disappears. Here's the mechanism. The first property required something from you: discipline, discomfort, decision. The second property requires something different. It requires reinvention of urgency on purpose without the external pressure that created the first one. Most people at this stage spend the next 18 to 36 months just owning their one property, watching it appreciate, enjoying the cash flow, running mental calculations about the future. Derek is currently here. He bought his first property at 31. He is now 36. It is still his only property. He tells people he's in real estate. The thing about Derek isn't that he's lazy or unintelligent. He's actually more knowledgeable about real estate theory than most people he knows. But knowledge without a forcing function becomes a holding pattern. The first property removed the fear. And without the fear, there was no urgency. And without urgency, there was no next decision. The structural move at level 2 is to treat the equity in property 1 not as a score, but as a raw material. A cash-out refinance or HELOC at the right time can fund 60 to 80% of the down payment on property 2. The first machine funds the second machine. That's not a metaphor. That's the actual mechanism that makes this strategy compound rather than stall. Marcus did this 26 months after his first purchase. His duplex had appreciated $31,000. He pulled $22,000 out in a cash-out refi. That was his down payment on a single-family rental. He didn't earn more money, he just refused to let the first win become a resting place. Level 3, Properties 3 and 4, the trap of the spreadsheet that lies. By the time you're acquiring your third and fourth properties, you've become a different kind of investor. You've got 2 properties working, you're projecting forward, you're building models. And this is exactly when a new, more dangerous trap appears. The trap at level 3 is the spreadsheet that assumes you. Here's what that means. Every model you build about your rental portfolio assumes a version of you that never gets tired, never gets emotional, never defers a maintenance call, and never misreads a tenant. The spreadsheet doesn't model the Saturday you spend 3 hours dealing with a water heater instead of your daughter's soccer game. It doesn't model the lease renewal you avoided for 6 months because you didn't want the awkward conversation. Vanguard research on individual real estate investors has consistently shown that the gap between projected and actual returns on rental portfolios, after accounting for vacancy, maintenance, and management friction, averages 18 to 23%. Not because the math was wrong, because the human operating the asset wasn't factored in. The move at level 3 is to systematize before you scale. That means a property management layer, either a professional manager at 8 to 10% of rent, or a rigorous self-management system with defined response times, standardized lease terms, and a monthly review process. The investors who successfully reach 4 properties are almost never the ones managing everything mentally. They've built a system that runs without their full attention. Marcus brought in a property manager for properties 3 and 4. His cash flow dropped by $260 per month across the portfolio. His sanity, he says, went up by a factor of about 12. The math still worked, and he stopped dreading his phone. Level 4, the portfolio, the trap of the wrong definition of done. This is the final trap, and it's the most philosophical. You're at or near 4 properties. The income is real. The plan is working. And then the question shows up, quietly, usually in the form of a feeling rather than a thought. Is this enough? The trap at level 4 is redefining done upward, infinitely. It sounds like ambition. It is often avoidance. There's a real person I want you to know about. His name is Ronald Reed. He worked as a gas station attendant and janitor in Vermont for most of his adult life. He wore a jacket held together with a safety pin. When he died in 2014, he left behind a $8 million investment portfolio, primarily in blue-chip dividend stocks, and 2 modest rental properties he'd held for decades. His lesson wasn't about frugality or sacrifice. It was about this. He defined enough early. He knew what the portfolio was for, and that clarity protected him from the trap of perpetual accumulation for its own sake. 4 rentals, generating $400 per month each, $1,600 per month in cash flow, is not retirement, it's a foundation. It's the income floor that lets you take a different job, launch a different project, or simply stop making decisions from a place of scarcity. That is the point. Not the properties themselves, but what the properties protect. Your ability to choose. Charlie Munger said it more plainly than most. The first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. The 4 rental investor applies that rule not just to their index fund, but to their decision-making. Once the system is working, the most powerful thing you can do is resist the urge to blow it up in search of something bigger. The permission slip here is this. 4 is enough if 4 funds the life you actually want. You can choose not to play the game of infinite acquisition. The only scoreboard that actually matters is the one nobody can see. Marcus is 37 now. 4 properties, combined monthly cash flow of $1,740 after all expenses. That's not his salary, that's the floor beneath his salary. He took a lateral move at work last year into a role he actually likes, even though it pays $9,000 less annually. He could afford to, because his base cost of living was already partially covered by income he built in his 30s. Derek is also 37, one property, strong equity position, smart guy with an excellent spreadsheet, but he's still running the hopeful math at 10:47 on Sunday nights. The gap didn't open because of market conditions, or luck, or income. It opened in 2021 when Marcus made an offer on a duplex that wasn't perfect, and Derek opened another tab. These are not extraordinary people. Marcus didn't have a wealthy family, a massive income, or a mentor with insider knowledge. He had a sequence, a bias toward action, and a clear definition of what the portfolio was for. Here is the sequence, in order. Step 1. In the next 30 days, calculate your actual cash flow target, not your retirement number, your monthly income floor, the number that covers your core expenses and gives you margin. For most people, that's somewhere between $1,200 and $2,000 per month. Divide by $300, a conservative average net cash flow per property. That's your property count. For most people, it's 3 to 5. Step 2. Define your buying criteria before you look at a single listing. Price range, geographic radius, minimum cash flow after all expenses. Property type, write it down. If a property doesn't meet all 3 criteria, it doesn't get your attention. This removes the emotion before it shows up. Step 3. Find your financing pathway for property 1. If you don't have 20% down, look at FHA owner-occupied loans, 3.5% down, house hacking strategies, or conventional loans with 10 to 15% down in lower-cost markets. The perfect loan does not exist. The loan that gets you in the door does. Step 4. Set a decision deadline. Not an arbitrary one, a structural one. 6 months from today, you will have made an offer on at least one qualifying property, not necessarily closed, not necessarily accepted, an offer. This is the specific action that separates the investors from the people who own spreadsheets. Step 5. Plan the portfolio from the beginning, not the end. That means knowing now, before property 1, what your financing pathway to property 2 looks like. Most people treat each purchase as a standalone event. The for-rental investor treats it as a sequence. Property 1's equity becomes property 2's down payment. Property 2's cash flow reduces the income requirement for Property 3's underwriting. The whole chain is designed before the first link is installed. The boring choice isn't the consolation prize, it is the strategy. There is no trophy for looking like you've arrived. The only scoreboard that actually matters is the one nobody can see. The one where it's Sunday night and instead of running the hopeful math, you're looking at a deposit that showed up automatically that morning. Because 4 machines you built in your 30s are still running without you. The gap between Derek and Marcus didn't open at 37. It opened in 100 small moments across 4 years. Every time one of them ran the numbers and acted, and the other ran the numbers and waited. This is hard to do alone with a YouTube video. Knowing the 4 stages is step 1. Building the specific plan for your market, your income, and your timeline. That's a different conversation. If this video rearranged something for you, share it with one person who's been running the hopeful math on Sunday nights. They need this conversation too. Subscribe if you want more of it. I'll see you in the next one.